If a storm knocked out your power right now, could your family make it through the next 3 days without falling apart? Not would you survive. Could you actually function? Could you find water, keep your food from going bad, get your medication, and know where everyone in your house is supposed to meet up? Most people freeze right there because they've never actually answered that question. And that's exactly why we're doing this video. I'm gonna walk you through 10 things you need to have figured out before disaster hits, not after. This isn't a survivalist checklist. You don't need a bunker, you don't need a gun safe the size of a car, and you don't need to spend your whole paycheck on freeze-dried food buckets. What you need is a plan, a few supplies, and about an hour of your time this week. That's it. Stick around, because by the end of this video, you're going to know exactly what to do, in what order, and why most people get this completely backwards. Let's start with the biggest problem most Americans have with disaster prep. They think it starts with shopping. They go online, they buy a first aid kit, some canned food, maybe a flashlight, and they call it done. But official guidance from FEMA doesn't start with a shopping list at all. It starts with 4 steps. Know your risk, get your warnings, make a plan. Then, and only then, get your supplies. Skip the first 3, and your supplies are basically decoration. So let's go through this the right way, starting with something almost nobody does first, even though it should be first. Number 1, know what can actually happen where you live. This sounds obvious, but most people have never actually looked it up. If you live in Florida, your biggest threat is probably a hurricane. If you're in California, it might be wildfire or earthquake. If you're in the Midwest, tornadoes. If you're up north, winter storms and extreme cold. FEMA actually tracks risk information for 18 different natural hazards, broken down by community, so you can look up exactly what's likely to hit your area instead of guessing. This matters because the plan for a hurricane is not the plan for a wildfire. A hurricane gives you days of warning. A wildfire can give you minutes. If you build your entire plan around the wrong disaster, you're preparing for the wrong day. Number 2, make sure warnings can actually reach you. Here's something people don't think about. You could have the best emergency kit in the country sitting in your closet, but if you don't know a tornado is coming until it's already outside your window, none of that matters. Your phone can receive wireless emergency alerts, which are warnings sent out by public safety agencies straight to phones in a specific area, no app required. On top of that, there's the emergency alert system and NOAA weather radio, which broadcasts weather warnings around the clock. Check right now that these alerts are turned on for your phone. It takes 2 minutes, and it might be the single most important thing you do after watching this video. Number 3, decide where your family goes and how you're all going to reconnect. Picture this. Something happens during the day. You're at work, your partner is running errands, and your kids are at school. Nobody planned ahead of time where to meet or who to call. Now you've got 3 people trying to reach each other on a cell network that might be jammed with everyone else doing the same thing at the same time. This is exactly why FEMA pushes something called a family communication plan. It's simple. Pick a person outside your immediate area. Sometimes a phone call to a relative in another state is easier to get through than one across town, and everyone checks in with that person. Pick a meeting spot near your home, and a second one further away in case you can't get back to the neighborhood. Write it down. Put it in everyone's phone. This costs you nothing, and it solves a problem that trips up a lot of families when it actually happens. Number 4, plan your evacuation before you need it. This is where a lot of people get caught off guard, because they assume they'll just figure it out in the moment. But when you're being told to evacuate, you might have 20 minutes, not 2 hours. You need to already know your route, your backup route in case the first one is blocked, and where you're actually going, whether that's a relative's house, a hotel, or an official shelter. FEMA recommends having something ready to grab and go, a portable bag with the basics so you're not running through the house trying to remember everything while the clock is ticking. Think about it now, while you're calm, not later while you're panicking. Now that the planning side is covered, let's talk supplies, because this is where things get interesting, and honestly, a little bit surprising. Number 5, water. This is one of the clearest numbers in all of disaster prep, and it might be bigger than you think. Ready.gov, which is the government's official preparedness site, recommends at least 1 gallon of water per person, per day, and that covers both drinking and basic sanitation. The American Red Cross recommends 3 days of that for evacuation, and 2 full weeks of it if you're sheltering at home. Let's do the math together, because this is the part that surprises people. For a family of 4, 2 weeks of water at 1 gallon per person per day works out to 56 gallons. 56 gallons of water sitting in your house. That's not a couple of bottles in the pantry. That's several large containers, or a serious stack of cases. Most people picture disaster prep water as a 6-pack of bottled water on a shelf. The real number is a lot bigger than that. And seeing it laid out like this is usually the moment people realize they've been underestimating this the whole time. Number 6, food. And here's some good news. You do not need exotic survival food. No mystery buckets of freeze-dried meals you'll never actually eat. What you need is non-perishable food that your family will actually want to eat, and that doesn't require much prep. Canned soups, canned vegetables, peanut butter, crackers, granola bars, things like that. The Red Cross recommendation matches the water guidance: 3 days worth for evacuation, 2 weeks for staying home. The key word here is practical. If you buy food nobody in your house likes, it's going to sit there until it expires, and then you're back to square one. Stock what you'd actually eat on a normal day, just in a form that doesn't need a fridge or a stove. Number 7, and this is a big one. What happens when the power goes out? Most people don't realize how fast the clock starts ticking. An unopened refrigerator will generally keep food cold for about 4 hours once the power is out. After that, you're making decisions about what to keep and what to toss. This is why having a battery-powered or hand-crank radio, flashlights, and extra batteries matters so much, because you lose light, you lose your ability to charge your phone, and you lose the easy way to get information, all at the same time. Now here's where I need to stop and talk about something that genuinely worries me, because a lot of people think the answer to a blackout is simple: just buy a generator. And a generator can absolutely help, but used the wrong way, it can create a second emergency that's worse than the first one. Portable generators burn fuel, and that produces carbon monoxide, a gas you cannot see or smell. The CDC is very specific about this. A generator needs to run outdoors, more than 20 feet away from any window, door, or vent. Not in the garage, even with the door open. Not on a covered porch right next to the house. Outdoors, and far enough away that the exhaust doesn't drift back inside. And if you are going to use one, get a battery-powered carbon monoxide detector as a backup, because people have died from this exact mistake, thinking they were being careful when they weren't careful enough. This is the kind of detail that never makes it into generic prep lists, but it might be the most important safety point in this entire video. Number 8, medications and medical equipment. This is where a one-size-fits-all checklist completely falls apart, because your prescriptions are not the same as your neighbors. What you need to do, before anything happens, is talk to your pharmacist or your doctor about 2 things. First, how long can your specific medication handle being at a higher temperature if your fridge stops working? Second, is there a way to get a slightly larger supply on hand for emergencies? The Red Cross generally points to about a 7-day supply as a starting reference point, but your actual needs depend entirely on your prescriptions and your doctor's guidance, so don't treat any number as a rule that applies to everyone. If you or someone in your house relies on powered medical equipment, that becomes part of your power outage plan too, not an afterthought. Number 9, and this one catches people off guard because it doesn't look like typical prep at all: your documents. Insurance policies, identification, bank account information, medication lists. FEMA's guidance actually includes this as a real part of an emergency kit, either physical copies in something waterproof or digital copies you can access from your phone. Here's why this matters more than people expect. After a disaster, you may need to prove who you are, file an insurance claim, or access money. And if your only copies were sitting in a filing cabinet that's now underwater or gone, you're stuck rebuilding your entire paper trail during the worst possible week of your life. Take 20 minutes, take photos of your important documents, and save them somewhere you can reach, even if your house is a total loss. Number 10, adjust everything for the actual people in your household. A generic list assumes everyone is a healthy adult with no pets, no kids, and no mobility issues. That's rarely true. If you have young kids, think about comfort items, formula, diapers, anything that would make a stressful situation slightly less awful for them. If you have pets, they need food, water, and a plan too, because a lot of shelters have rules about animals, so know that ahead of time. If someone in your home is older or has a disability, their evacuation plan might look completely different. Maybe they need more time, transportation help, or specific equipment that has to go with them. This is the step that turns a generic checklist into an actual plan for your specific family. So let's zoom out for a second, because here's the thing that really stands out once you put all 10 of these together. Only 3 or 4 of them are about buying stuff. The rest are about knowing things and deciding things ahead of time. Your risk, your alerts, your meeting spot, your evacuation route. Those cost you nothing but a little bit of thinking, and they might matter just as much as anything you could buy at a store. And here's a number that puts all of this in perspective. Government data tracking costly weather and climate disasters counted 403 events across the country between 1980 and 2024 that each caused at least $1 billion in damage. And in just the last 5 years of that data, the yearly average was more than double what it was over the full stretch. That doesn't mean the world is ending. It means these events aren't rare, one-in-a-lifetime stories anymore. There's something a lot of communities across the country are going to deal with at some point, in one form or another. Here's the honest truth behind all of this. None of these 10 things guarantee your family will be completely safe. Nobody can promise that, and you should be skeptical of anyone who does. What this actually does is take away a bunch of decisions you'd otherwise have to make in a panic, all at once, on the worst day of the year. Knowing your evacuation route means you're not arguing about which road to take while the wind is picking up. Having water stored means you're not standing in a line at a gas station with 50 other people. Having your documents saved means you're not trying to remember your policy number while you're also trying to keep your family calm. That's really what preparedness is. It's not about predicting exactly what's going to happen to you. It's about clearing out as many of the small, solvable problems as you can ahead of time, so that if something big actually happens, you're only dealing with the disaster itself, and not 10 other problems on top of it. Start small if you need to. Pick one thing from this list today. Sign up for your local alerts. Talk to your family about a meeting spot. Buy a couple extra jugs of water next time you're at the store. You don't need to do all 10 tonight. You just need to stop being the family that figures it out for the first time while it's already happening. I've linked some of the specific resources and tools mentioned in this video down in the description, so check that out if you want to start putting this together. See you in the next one.